Hello, and thank you for joining us for this Westwood Trust Creative Chat. My name is Claire Williamson, and I'm the Director of Education and Community Engagement at Society for the Performing Arts. To briefly describe myself and my surroundings, I'm a white woman with long brown hair and dark rimmed glasses. I'm wearing a rainbow collared shirt and am sitting in front of a corkboard on a very bright blue wall. I am thrilled to chat today with one of the live commission awardees of the Houston Artist Commissioning Project, Harrison Guy. The mission of SPA's Houston Artist Commissioning Project is to provide economic and creative support to Houston's artist community, with 6 local artists awarded funds to create original work that premiere on the Jones Hall stage this fall for 2 socially distanced performances. To learn more about the Houston Artist Commissioning Project and to purchase tickets to Harrison's premiere on November 12th and 13th, please visit our website. The link will be in the video description. Before we delve into the conversation, I would like to take a moment to humbly acknowledge the many Indigenous communities that have long used and continue to use this land as a living and gathering space. SPA's offices in Jones Hall are located on ancestral land traversed by the Karankawa, Atakapa Ishak, Sana, and Coahuitecan people. The Alabama Coushatta also migrated to the Houston area over 3 centuries ago and have participated in playing a large role in shaping the culture and economy of our region. We know that a land acknowledgement is not enough, but we look to this as a starting place of recognition and respect for the lived experience of the people of this land and to broaden awareness of the forces that have led to this moment. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Harrison Guy, awardee of the Houston Artist Commissioning Project. Harrison has captivated audiences across the nation through his inspirational and unique works of passion, beauty, and activism that are rooted in African American history and culture. He began his dance journey in the small town of Lamarck, Texas, and building on his love for social dance and hip hop, he affirmed his purpose and calling by studying dance at Prairie View A&M University. He continued his studies at the Houston Metropolitan Dance Center, Sam Houston State University, Deeply Rooted Productions in Chicago, Dallas Black Dance Theater, and the Ailey School in New York. He was a founding member of both Exclamation Dance Company and Darrell Martin's Dance Fusion in Houston. In 2004, he debuted his dance company, Urban Souls Dance Company, at the citywide dance festival, Dance Houston. Harrison has gained a reputation for creating soul-stirring works that shift the consciousness of the audience and inspire response. Harrison has been teaching dance for 18 years. He's taught on many campuses across Houston and is currently on the faculty at Kinder High School for the Performing and Visual Arts. He is the founder of the Charles Law Community Archive through the Black LGBTQ History and Heritage Project with the African American Library at the Gregory School. Harrison is the Director of Arts and Culture for the Fifth Ward Community Redevelopment Corporation. Welcome, Harrison.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm so glad that you were able to join us. It's so great to see you. I know you've been really busy with a lot of ongoing projects. Anything you want to share with our audience that's going on?
Oh no, that was the bio was a lot to get us started. So I think everybody gets a sense for how I'm all over the place in many ways. So I think we're good.
Great. Well, it's always wonderful to hear about the work that you're doing in our community for sure. I definitely want to delve into talking about your piece for the Houston Artist Commissioning Project. So your piece is called Colored Carnegie, and it is, and I'll just let you kind of talk about it. I'm really curious about how you sort of identified this topic, and yeah.
Cool. Well, I love history and I love Black history. It's just I just find it to be really, really both inspiring and intriguing at some of the accomplishments that Black people were able to achieve, especially in times like in 1907, like, Black people being able to do anything remarkable with all of the forces that were working against them. I just find that to be so inspiring. And so I've always really, really had a really, really deep interest in Black history.
Yeah.
And once I decided that I was going to have a dance company here in Houston, I just really tried to focus on local Black history because, it's just so many stories that people don't know, and it's, we know the national stories of Black history that we get told over and over again, but there's not a lot of emphasis and there's just no curriculum really to learn about what Black people were doing at those times where you live.
Right.
I thought that could be a great opportunity for myself as a choreographer and the company to take on some of these stories and put them on stage and tell not just Houston but the world about amazing Black Houstonians from the beginning of time as far as we can look back. And so I was doing a story about, I do most of my research at the African American Library, the Gregory School. And, I have a really, really strong connection to the Gregory School. We performed at the grand opening and we've done tons of projects at the Gregory School. And it's just a great resource. And so I'm just going to do my plug, here at the beginning that the Gregory School, what I love about the Gregory School is that, first of all, it is accessible. It's so accessible. A lot of institutions that do research and that have archives, they are just so hard to penetrate, to engage. And the Gregory School is just, they want you there and they want you to be successful in your research. And so I just love the people, but I also love the collections. Black people, we don't really have archiving as a priority,
Right.
And of course not. We have a lot of other things to be worried about. But the Gregory School is doing a really, really great job of getting Black people to go back and bring those collections so that, people can research things like the color Carnegie and have some things to do. And the last thing I'll say is, because a lot of people think we can do a lot on Google, and you can, but the Gregory School has personal collections, like things that you cannot find digitized yet. It is like, the things that I found are just, I just get goosebumps thinking about some of the things, people's personal programs from like an art exhibition in 1912. Like, it's just, those types of things you're not going to be able to find unless you go and look into those collections. So this, my quick plug about the Gregory School and how awesome the staff is and how great the institution is. And it just really does what it's supposed to do as it relates to protecting these legacies and these histories. And so I did
love the Gregory School. Yes.
Yes. Shout out to the Gregory School.
Yes, shout out.
I have done so many historical projects, and I always go there to get, a little bit more than what I can find from talking to people. And so I did one of the projects that I did was the story of Fourth Ward and how, when the freed slaves moved there, it was one of the first Black communities that was started here in Houston, and the city would not pave their roads, and so they came together as a community and had someone in the community that was doing bricks, and so they paved their own streets. I just thought that story just blew me out the water, right? It just said, whoa. Like, hold on, and so we did a piece about that. And it was through my research from there, I learned about the Red Book, which is a book that has lots of Black Houston history. And one of the stories that I think I found from that research for that piece was the Colored Carnegie. And as soon as I read about Colored Carnegie, I said, I have to do this. I just have to create a piece about this. It's just such a great story. And so I have been sitting on this story for a very long time, like, over a decade on this story, because, I wanted to do it at the right moment. And at first I thought it was going to be a play, and then I thought it was going to be an opera. And then, I didn't know what it was going to be, but it was a story that I felt really responsible. I felt a responsibility to honor it in a really, really great way. And so I was just trying to wait on the right moment. And so here we are.
Yes, here we are. No, and it is so, it's so impactful, the importance of archiving and of archival work, and the Gregory School does such amazing work in the community here in Houston, in particular, of chronicling Black history and lifting up the stories of our everyday neighbors,
Right.
to have them have the way life is live on, and like a testament and an artifact live on.
Right.
Was just talking with them about that in terms of some of the work that's going on right now in the community. And it's really exciting, and I completely know what you're saying with the goosebumps that
Mhm.
you feel when you read some of these stories and you see some of these artifacts. Like, this is somebody's real life. This was
Right.
what was happening in the interior world of these folks. It's not what you are going to find in the textbooks, and that's why it's so important to have archives like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you were able to come across this story. Do you want to tell our audience a little bit? I think the Colored Carnegie story and Julia Idison in particular. There's a building here named after her.
Yep.
I don't, but I think a lot of people don't necessarily know where that history comes from.
Yeah, for sure. And there is a Carnegie Library that is
Mhm.
operating right now through the Houston Public Library System. So the Colored Carnegie that I'm doing the work about is in 1907, I believe, there were a group of educators who were turned away from the Houston Lyceum, which at that time was like the public library,
Right.
because they were Black. And so Black educators were turned away, not allowed to go into what was the city library at the time. And so from there, they really just took it upon themselves to say, we want a library, we want to read. And so in 1909, they were given like a small room in a school, and they thought that was not enough. And so at that time, the Carnegie Foundation was giving grants for libraries all over the United States. And so the Houston had already got a grant from Carnegie to have a library, but this particular group decided that they wanted to have a library that was separate from the city, that had a completely all Black board, and they wanted to really have autonomy to do their own library. And so that's what was very unique and special about the Houston version of the Color Carnegies, because there were Color Carnegies in other places as well. But that was a little different in that they said we want our own building. We want to
Yeah.
apply for the grant as the Color
Right.
Carnegie Library. We don't want it to go through the city. And so that that kind of I don't know, that kind of ambition and just that foresight to say we want to be leaders and we want to lead this and we want to have ownership and be in control. I just thought that was so fascinating for in 1909 for them
Yeah.
to have the energy and the guts to do something like that. I just was so inspired by that. And then they ended up getting the grant and having a building built that was a beautiful building that was built. It had it was a library, but it also had an auditorium in the basement, like a
Wow.
260 5-seat auditorium. And so I was just thinking, for that time, how grand that building was, how grand of occasion it was when it opened. There's some photographs of the opening ceremony, and just that story just really, really, it just pierced straight through my heart with all of the layers of kind of working together to raise the money. They raised the rest of the money, because the grant I think was only 50,000. They raised the rest of the money in the Black community, and so just really, really a story that just really spoke to my heart. And so I just really had to tell the story.
Yeah, that is such an incredible story of resilience and fortitude in 1909, at the turn of the 20th century. It seems like so long ago, and we're still facing a lot of similar challenges in our communities now. So that's really just such a fascinating story. What happened to the building? Curious.
Yeah, so the building is was directly across the street from the historical Antioch Baptist Church originally, so it was in Fourth
Okay.
Ward.
Hmm.
The building was it came down after it closed, so the library closed in 1969, I believe it was. The library closed, and when the library closed, shortly after that, the building came down, and so it's no longer in place.
Hmm.
So something else that I think was really interesting about this story is that there's I say about the Color Carnegie in Houston having a different kind of flair, a different story, a different attitude. I say that's so Houston. I say that's very Houston about Black Houston. That is
Yeah.
very different. But also Julia Idison, who was the chief librarian at the time,
Hmm.
she really helped, these community members to get this going. She
Right.
trained the first Black librarian. She was on board as far as we can see, and I'm sure that this came with a lot of nuance and a lot of layers because of the times, but as much as I can tell from what I've read about it, she was completely on board, completely trained the first librarian, which I thought, for a white woman at that time to train a Black librarian to work with this group to get them more than what they were given, and to
Right.
understand why they wanted more. I just thought that was a really Houston, part of it as well. And so those two, so there's a section about Julia Idison in the piece as well.
Yeah, that's such an interesting story because I feel like a lot of us who live in Houston know about the Julia Edison building downtown and are kind of aware of that, but have no real consciousness of her as an individual or what her impact was in our
Mhm.
community. Um, and yeah, I completely agree. In 1909, at the turn of the century, white women didn't have very much leverage either, and to use the privilege that she had to lend a hand and do what she could for the Black community, I think is a great sort of addition to the amazing story of the folks that actually got the library going.
Oh, absolutely. And she's a person who deserves a work about her as well. She did a lot. And one of the things I found fascinating about her is that she really fought for libraries in prisons.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
she really
Oh,
fought to have libraries in prisons. And so that kind of gave me a little bit more um, of an in-depth of just knowing that she was an activist at heart. And
right.
that it was, it was beyond kind of like, all these things are wrapped up in each other, but she was kind of just really, she really wanted for reading and literacy to be equitable.
Hmm.
And so I thought that was very fascinating about her. So I'm hoping that if I don't, that someone will do a story about her as well. I mean, she has the building that is like one of my favorite Houston buildings. It's so beautiful. But people need to know this story and that this was happening, at that time. I think it's just really,
Right.
really beautiful to know that people were on the right side of history, that people were
Yeah.
trying, and that there were people who really saw inequity and got up and did something about it. I think that inspires us to do a little bit more. Because I certainly always say when I do these historical works, I always leave saying, man, if they could do that in 1909, I should be doing more. I just,
Yeah.
with me to feel like you can do more, you can do more.
Yeah. I also feel like if you're saying you can do more, then everyone else can do more because you're already doing
Oh,
so much work in the community.
thank you. Thank you. I always tell people just do your part, just do what you can. It's really easy to be intimidated and uninspired, by the fact that when you look at other people, right, and you see, oh my
Right.
God, they're doing so much. And, so I always tell people, work with what you have and just do your part. And your part is beneficial. And that's how we get the work done. Everybody working in their lane. So I'm always pushing people to just figure out what your thing is and just really, really maximize the potential on that.
That's such great advice for everyone in the community to be thinking about. Okay, what is one thing that I can do? You don't have to do everything, and
Oh,
you're not going to be good at everything. So find
right.
the thing that you are really going to be able to make an impact with and stick with it.
Yeah, because I often feel like, for a long time, I mean, I will go to protests. I've been in protests. I mean, I will do that, but I am most useful in like where's the work? Where's the tangible behind the scenes in an office getting things done? Where's that work? I really thrive in that environment. So I always tell people that's where I really show up because I
Yeah,
just know that is my lane. And the people that, are table shakers, we need them as well. And they need to do that and know what that's their part to play. But I know where I can do the best work.
totally. Yeah. And you do. I think this is a great opportunity too to sort of pivot now and talk a little bit about process. When you're talking about doing the work and thinking about creating a piece like this, of course, this was most of this work was done during sort of pretty high pandemic times last spring. So I'm curious about what that process has been like, especially in terms of with dance in particular, working in person and identifying your company members. Yeah, what has that been like?
Yeah, that's really interesting because that did, affect a lot of the process, and if I'm being completely honest, it was one of the reasons I didn't quite want to pitch this particular project during that time is because I felt like I was going to have to make some sacrifices and some concessions
Mhm.
for a piece that was really, really special to me. And so I really went back and forth about if this was the right time to do it, if this was the right
Right.
opportunity, how much of it, am I not going to get to do? And so I just really decided that, I was going to do the piece that's in my head. I was going to do it at 100%. Like I'm
Yeah.
not going to make any sacrifice or concessions. And so I just had to work a little harder to make those things happen. I pushed, like the audition for the piece as far as I could for comfortability of working in a space. I wanted the dancers to feel, really comfortable. So I thought if we had more time, that they would have more time to be vaccinated or to figure out what being in their best health meant for them.
Right.
So I pushed it back as far as I could. That's one of the ways we kind of adjusted, the dancers and myself, we've been in mask, in rehearsals. And so just that's a little different. It's a little,
Yeah.
and for the dancing that we do is really rigorous. It's, I have, a very athletic approach to dance. So it's a lot to do in a mask. It really is. It's a big ask. But the dancers have been really great sports about it. They too have just really, really, fell into the vision and really thought the story should be told as well. So that helped. I think it's the story that drives us, right? When we feel like, oh my goodness, my breath, where's the breath? And this mask, and it's hot. And it's like, and it's a lot to do. But when you think about the people you're dancing, that's why I love telling narrative stories, because it always gives you someone to be with you. And you don't feel alone because you know that you're telling a story that is real. And so you often can revert back to those people, like with your character development and the communal spirit of the piece. It translates into what we're doing right now, and it serves as a great inspiration for rehearsing and just building community. And so those are some of the kind of concessions we had to make, and honestly, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
That's great.
I've been able to do everything that I wanted to do, with the piece, from the costumes to the music to the set pieces. The vision is like 100% exactly what I wanted it to be. So I'm really glad that, we pushed forward and did it, and really excited for people to see it.
Yes, we are too. We're so excited for this piece to be out in the world and to be able to share it with folks on the premiere stage in November. Yeah, so I think one of the last things that I would love to touch on as we wrap up is just get your thoughts as one of the inaugural members of our first cohort of Houston Artist Commissioning Project awardees. What has this process been like for you? What advice would you give to other artists looking to do this work? And any major takeaways that you have?
Oh, wow. When we started these conversations just about, we started these conversations around, where the world was really starting to just decide who we wanted to be in this moment, and almost every organization that I am a part of or connected to or can see up close and personal, everyone was really, really taking the time to reflect, during
Right.
COVID and during the murder of George Floyd. A lot of people just really felt a sense of, this is the time, right? This is the
Mhm.
moment. And so when we started to have these conversations, I remember very early on, one of the conversations that I really wanted to move forward was just about, the lack of attention in Houston, period, for local artists. And that,
Right.
we always feel like it's a big deal when someone comes from out of town, and it's a little deal when we put on a show. And so that, that's a lot to do with capacity. It has a lot to do with kind of the personality of the city, and the way our media works. Here, there's a lot of
Right.
work to be done around that. But I thought that this particular project was a great stepping stone to putting some of the local artists into some conversations that they wouldn't be in. SPA
Right.
has a really, really great reach because a lot of people do come to see whatever you bring to Houston. And so it's
Right.
open you up to a new audience. And really, I just thought it was a great stepping stone to where we would want the city to be in regards to local artists. So being a part of the first one is pretty exciting. I'm a little sad because I already did it. I've already done it, and I already know that even from just listening, that it'll grow and get better. And so I'm really excited about that. But it's an honor. And my advice would be to people to try for it. Really apply and a work that you would love to see on a great stage. A stage like Jones Hall is not a stage that a lot of small arts organizations have access to. We just don't, because of cost and a lot of barriers to getting there, and that's unfortunate. But it's one of those stages that it's a dream to perform on, because some of our favorite artists perform on that stage, and so
Yeah.
it's really, really a great opportunity. And so I would tell people, just really go for it and do your, like me, do your best passion project on an amazing stage.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Go for it. That's the advice that we'll send out. Yeah, we definitely look forward to seeing the work that comes out of this, but also especially excited to see the premiere of Colored Carnegie this November 12th and 13th at Jones Hall. Yeah, so thank you all so much for joining us for this conversation. Thank you to our program sponsor, Westwood Trust. Um, Before we sign off, I would like to encourage everyone to learn more about and support the amazing work that Harrison has going on beyond his work with SPA. We'll link to his website and social media in the caption. Thank you so much, Harrison, for sharing your time with me today and for just allowing our audience to get to know you and your work a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. And the last thing I'll say is that, you know, I'm really hoping that we're able to do a version of Colored Carnegie in all the cities that had a Colored Carnegie. And so that is a
Oh,
vision for taking this outside of Houston and sharing how it happened in Houston, but also other cities that got to experience getting the grant to have Colored Carnegies. We want to maybe do some community outreach and tweak the story to fit that particular community.
yeah.
Really would like to take it on the road and show it to other cities as well.
That's such a great idea for a tour because this story has happened in all of these isolated communities, but there's no sort of like unifying
Right.
narrative around
Exactly.
them. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a really, really exciting thought. So we'll put that out there for
Get out
folks
there.
listening too. Yeah, it's exciting also to think about the future of these projects and kind of where this premiere can go, can lead moving forward. For some
Yeah.
folks that's a longer piece or new collaborations. But yeah, there's so many. The world's your oyster.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's a really important point because a part of when I was talking earlier about, is this the right time for this piece? The revelation for me was this doesn't have to be it. Like it can be more, it can be longer, it can be shorter,
Right.
there's so much more you can do with this, a starting point, right? And
Mhm.
so once I kind of sat with that, I was like, oh yeah, like this doesn't have to be it. That's when I was
Right.
like, oh, I definitely should do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it may not be like you said, you sometimes have to make some concessions around sort of like what your ideal perfect vision is, but
Mhm.
knowing that this doesn't have to be the end
Mhm.
allows you to sort of freeze you up a little bit to be like, all right, I'll make these concessions now and maybe it'll turn out that I like it better this way or
Absolutely. That's
next time I can go
exactly how
back
I
and
saw
yeah. Oh, that's so wonderful. Well, I'm so excited for your premiere, and I want to make sure our audience saves the date for Harrison's Houston Artist Commissioning Project premiere at Jones Hall. That's November 12th and 13th at 7:30 p.m. You can purchase tickets at spahouston.org, and we hope to see you there. Bye.
it. Bye bye.